Hey guys, Joe Flowers here with the Equipped to Endure exclusive. We had a chance to interview the Morris Kahansky at the Woodsmoke and Bushcraft Symposium in Idaho. That was put on by David Westcott and Backtracks, LLC. Now, if you don't know who Morris Kahansky is, he wrote the book Bushcraft, Outdoor Skills and Wilderness Skills, and is considered one of North America's top leading experts in survival, if not in the world, and definitely one of the big dudes in bushcraft. And also one of my personal heroes. So I had a great time interviewing him over a multi-hour process. So this is going to be one part of many segments here on Equipped to Endure. So stay tuned. And remember, if you're always prepared, you're never prepared.
And I'm going to visit two of the most renowned instructors in Europe and Finland, Turku Aaltonen, and these are all long-term friends that I've known at least since 1990s, and Turku in particular, you know, he's I love the guy. He sent a letter to somebody once and he got a hold of my book and he wrote to this friend, and the friend showed me the letter. He says, I pretty well, as far as I'm concerned, I might as well stop living, because somebody wrote the book that I always wanted to write and it beat me to it. Anyway, he phones me and he sort of says, I want to talk to you. His English is adequate. He says, you're the first book that has a chapter on how to use a knife. He says, I must talk to this man because it's very unusual. Well, anyway.
A lot of our viewers are big-time knife users, so if you don't have this book, you need to get it. There's a lot of stuff, even about knife wound care. You should have a doctorate in knife wound care. Yeah, well,
all this information is going to come in this, you know, there would have been a, you know, booklet, but there'll be the 10-page, which I will, you know, I almost tell people I hate knives. What is it? There's that board, if you pass it to me here, for example, you know, here I got knives that come from all over. There's the knife that I started with. That is a standard. This one actually happens to be a Swedish issue. Standard Mora knife. If you can understand that these blades are 4 fingers wide, but you can see them further. And here is the Skookum knife.
I have one of those.
And here is Roger Harrington. He's a knife maker in England, and he spent a lot of time with me, and one day he sends this knife that's 145 pounds, maybe 15 years ago, and here is a hockey stick handle and a knife. This knife was made in probably less than half an hour. We would make these by the handful at the survival school because the people were issued knives and reissued, and when that happens, by the time you are the 3rd or 4th guy to get the knife, you might as well use a big spike, because you got to dig for roots. You ain't got to cut very much wood. So we would make these
Canada, hockey stick handles. Huh?
Yeah, well, the thing is, we wanted to fast the dimensions. We ran out of axe handles. Now this is 4 fingers long, continuous curvature, center of the blade. This blade is not a survival thing, and that's so flexible, and a handle that fits, and a lanyard getting lost, and when you use that knife, which took 20 minutes to build, you think it's almost got a mind of its own because of the ease with which you make feathers, and the way all these other knives are even better in a way, but they are, you know, this knife goes back in the tradition of the Scandinavians for hundreds of years, and you know, no guard, simulation guard, no guard. Rod Garcia in Skookum, he's a student of mine that came back, and he was a painter that I think felt that the chemicals in paint were affecting their health, so he decided to become a knife maker.
Wow. And
caused quite a sensation, because here, in theory, my definition of a knife is a pry bar. First, a pry bar that works wood really, really well. not any other sort of one. Going further, I think I actually have a knife.
I've talked to Rod before. He's a real nice guy, and I have a Skookum, and it actually is one of my favorite knives of all time. I should do a Equipped to Endure video on it. Adam, I'll get to that at some point here.
Well, here is an actual standard knife that would suit my hand. 4 fingers. Not even an illusion regard. In fact, there's a little sharp thing that might bother people, but it's never bothered me. I've worked for 45 years in the field of using knives heavily, and to tell you the truth, there are cuts, but they got nothing to do with the guard protecting you from your own knife. It's other cuts. I cut myself by driving a knife tip into my thigh till I heard. So I'm wearing wind pants, wool pants, and long johns. And when I feel that tip grate on my thigh bone, I gotta. So
Wow.
when you work, I learned what it means to work on your thighs. If you're going to work on your thigh, take your parka, fold it over as many times as you can, then take a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood and put it on there, then you're allowed to work because of the hazard. And when you stab yourself, especially cross-grained, I can't explain to you what the feeling is once the pain sets in. It is very much like an electric prod, because you stand up and you take a few steps and there's a twitch of those muscles, and it feels like some electrical discharge, and you find yourself laying on the ground because that's so utterly painful.
And it pulls your own
You
blood,
cannot
of course.
react to it. You just fall down. So it means you cut yourself like that in the middle of nowhere, you're dead, and sort of thing. So you don't work on your thigh. Learn, elbows forward. But
I thought you
anyway,
were making a joke about exercising with your thighs and stuff.
well,
Working on your
well,
thighs.
well, I carved a flute. And I never thought about the splitting it in half, and then you hollow out a round, half round, rolls, and I'm working away. All of a sudden, it rolls out from under my knife. Snick it went. And then I had a very good lesson that was for me alone for the next 6 months about the consequences. I've seen other students stab themselves. You're a stretcher case, and so on. But anyway, the Mora knife. This is not a pry bar. That people bring knives, and I've used knives so much, and I'll say to a person, the questions you're asking me about strength and everything, I can really demonstrate that knife you just brought if you brought a second one, because I could show you how easily it's broken. I said, you don't want to break that knife. Maybe you got to teach yourself how not to do the things that break the knife, and on and on and on. But all the features of the knife, this is classic. If your survival knife looks like this, you can't be wrong. And I really find it quite amusing that everybody thinks I'm an authority in knives. Well, when I wrote Bushcraft, I knew knives were important, and discussing with Tom Roycroft, that knife actually was that hockey stick knife that I was talking about there. Many people have interpreted it, and I generally find a lot of people who don't get that interpretation, they're sort of looking at a knife and intuitively feeling it's nice or not. Me, I'll say, well, what I like on a knife is continuous curvature, because you can put a very sharp edge on that than any other type of curve on the knife. I like a handle that I can hold so that for quite a while I don't have to unravel my fingers one at a time to let go of the blade. I like a knife that will work wood for all the things that have to be done. And of course, the brutality you might have to apply to the knife might have to be strong, because what we're saying, if we train everybody properly how to use a knife, you set aside your axe or hatchet, because eventually, and so what the knife is expected to do is very easy to destroy your knife, because you're pounding on it and doing all kinds of stuff. Therefore, if you're saying, I'm going to set aside your axe and your saw and all these other things, and I'm going to survive with a knife alone, you've got to use that knife much more powerfully, and the knife isn't up to it, you have a breakage.